Okay, so welcome back again in this lecture. So this was our last slide in the last lecture discussion. So we were discussing about the planner process. So we have already done this discussion about the planner process. So what we have said about the planner process is what was the salient feature of the planner process was we could have we, we were able to develop a silicon dioxide layer, and because of this silicon dioxide layer we were able to do the selective diffusion of the dopants. Okay, so this I have already discussed. So we were able to do the selective diffusion, and because of the SiO2 layer, okay, this selective diffusion was possible, and also this SiO2 layer is actually able to provide the electrical passivation to the junctions. Okay, so this is what our discussion was in the last lecture, and moreover I also told you about that this SiO2 layer is acting like a mask. Fine, so it is acting like a mask for different dopant materials. So whatever be the material, wherever your SiO2 layer is there, then at that portion our dopants will not be able to diffuse. Okay, so this is what is the advantage. Okay, this is our basic advantage of our uh, SiO2 layer. Then what we have said, because of the invention of this particular planar process, this is the major means we can say that breakthrough that took place. Okay, that actually replaced the germanium. Okay, as a choice of material. So what we are using nowadays, we are using the silicon. So before that, we either could have gone for the germanium or we could have gone for the silicon. But because of the invent of this particular planar process, I said that the germanium dioxide layer is also possible, but germanium dioxide is not a stable layer. It is not forming a stable layer. Okay, and because of that, a very high quality of germanium dioxide layer would not be possible. It is not stable, and therefore everything for IC fabrication is actually shifted to silicon material only. And this was the basic reason why we are actually having this silicon as a prominent material for IC fabrication nowadays. Now, one more thing that we have to understand here is, so at present from this slide, you may be not able to see the other advantages of having the planar process and other advantages of SiO2 layer. Okay, because what I have said is, I have said that the SiO2 layer is providing a mean so that we can have the selective etching, and etching means removal of the certain portion of the SiO2. Okay, so we can selectively remove the portion of SiO2, and then we can open a window and we can do the diffusion selectively at a particular region where we want to do the diffusion. Okay, so because it is just a two-dimensional picture, you are not able to see what is the means how advantageous this process is. Okay, that we are not able to see in this picture. But basically you already know that in the case of IC fabrication, what we need is, we need that there should be the billions of transistors. There should be a very large number of transistors that should be fabricated, not only fabricated, but their proper interconnection is needed to make a particular circuit or to get a particular electronic function. We need a proper interconnection between them, and we need to have a large number of billions number of transistors on the same chip, or you can say on the same substrate. So because this is a two-dimensional graph diagram, you could not be able to see how this SiO2 layer is actually providing the way so that we can grow large number of transistors. Okay, so when I will be discussing about the growth of your MOSFET, okay, I will be discussing step by step, because in this particular figure all the steps are not mentioned. Okay, all the steps are not mentioned, right? So I will be discussing one by one how these steps are actually implemented. Okay, so that time we will be looking at so how we can make more than one transistor on a same substrate. Okay, that is the major advantage of our planar process that we have to look at. So I hope from this discussion you must be aware as of now that the planar process, due to the invent of SiO2 layer, and there is a certain favorable property of the SiO2 layer during the manufacturing of these components, uh, we are actually using the silicon, okay, over your germanium. Fine. So now we have to move to our basics again. So how what we have said is silicon is one of the abundant material, right? Silicon is one of the abundant material, and it is containing around 25.7% of the earth crust. So it is a major abundance. Okay, you can understand it is having a very huge percentage of earth crust, which is our silicon. Okay, so when it is available in the nature in the form of silicon dioxide, it is available in the form of silicon dioxide. It is also called as quartzite. Okay, so then how this quartzite is actually converted to this type of devices. Okay, this is what we have to look at, how this quartzite is actually converted to this type of devices that we have to look at. Okay, this is our discussion for today, so that we have to look at. So basically what we want to know, we want to know that we have the quartzite. Quartzite means it is the available form of silicon in the nature. Okay, it will be available in the form of silicon dioxide, and then it has to be converted to the silicon wafers. Okay, you might not be aware about the wafers, but wafers is the you can say like I have told you about the substrate. So you can consider them as a very thin sheet. Okay, it may be a cylindrical shape. Okay, it cannot be cylindrical because thickness is very small. Okay, it is having very small thickness. I will tell you the details about this. Okay, so we have to have a quartzite, and then from the quartzite we need to get a silicon wafers. Okay, and then from the silicon wafers we have to do a certain processing to make the different components on the silicon wafer. Okay, like MOSFETs, and then we have to do the interconnection between the MOSFET to get a particular performance, electronic performance of the device, so that it will be converted to a integrated circuit. Fine. So this is what we have to look at. So now what I'm saying is we are having a quartzite as a material. Okay, quartzite as a material. Then we are going to the silicon wafers. So first of all, from going from the quartzite to a silicon wafer is not very straight away. Okay, there are several number of steps that we have to follow to get a silicon wafers from the quartzite. Okay, we have to follow certain steps to convert this quartzite into a silicon wafers. Similarly, from the silicon wafers we have to do number of processings to get an integrated circuits. Okay, so this is what we have to look at, how this quartzite will be converted to an integrated circuit. That is very much important. So now we can look at, these are the some of the pictures that I have taken, okay, from the internet. You can find it on the internet. Okay, so this is one of the picture of the quartzite. Okay, so quartzite is a silicon dioxide, so it will be available, and you will get a lots of picture of the quartzite. Okay, so it is nothing but your sandstone or something. Okay, so this is available in the nature in the raw form. So it will look something like this. Okay, it will look something like this. So now from this quartzite, what we have to do is, first of all, this is a raw form. Okay, and it is will be highly impure form of the silicon. Okay, so it is not only containing the silicon, but it must be having a large number of impurities within it. Okay, and obviously this looks like a stone. Obviously it is a stone, so it cannot, so how it can be converted, because we cannot fabricate out of this. Okay, So what we have to do, we have to convert this quartzite into a suitable form so that we will be able to make ICs from this material. Okay. So first of all, what we need to do is we need to convert this quartzite. Okay. These quartzite need to be converted into a polysilicon rods. Okay. You see here, it is polysilicon rod. Okay. So we need to convert them into a polysilicon rod first. Okay. And then from polysilicon rod, what we have to do is we have to convert this polysilicon rod to a single silicon crystal. Okay, you can see in this picture I have single silicon crystals, okay, of different diameters. Okay, of different diameters you can see. Fine. So what we have to do is we have to convert this polysilicon rod into this single silicon crystal. As I already mentioned that for making any IC or making any component, we need single silicon crystal. We could not grow these devices on a polysilicon. Okay, so we cannot grow on the polysilicon crystal. So what we need a single crystal, single silicon crystal. So you will find this terminology again in the books. These particular thing is called as ingot. Okay, the cylindrical shape of this single silicon crystal is generally called as ingot. Okay, so out of this particular ingot, okay, we need to cut the wafers, right? These are the wafers. We need to cut the wafers of a specific thickness, right? We need to cut the wafers of a specific thickness, and then on these wafers we have to make our components, right? We need to make the components. A large number of transistors will be grown over it, and then it will be interconnected, okay, to perform a certain task. So what are the steps? The steps is we have to convert the quartzite into a polysilicon rod, and then from the polysilicon rod we need to convert this into a single silicon crystal, and then out of this single silicon crystal we need to get the wafers. Fine. So this step is nothing but only this portion. Okay. So what we are discussing right now is we are discussing about how this quartzite is converted to the silicon wafers. So right now we are not discussing about how this silicon wafers is converted to integrated circuits. So that I will be discussing in the later part of the lectures. Fine. So right now we are just discussing about this. Okay, so how this quartzite will be converted to this wafers. Fine. So now you can see this quartzite. Okay, when we need to convert the quartzite into the polysilicon, again this step will be broken up into different stages. Okay, it is again not very straight away like this quartzite will be directly converted to polysilicon. No, there are several steps that we need to follow. Fine. So that several steps we have to look at. What are the different steps that we have to follow to convert a quartzite into a polysilicon rod? And similarly, what are the different steps that we need to follow to convert a polysilicon rod into a single silicon crystal like ingot? Okay. And then we have to cut the wafers out of this ingot. So this is the total process that we have to discuss, okay, one by one. So now I will be discussing about the quartzite, how this quartzite is converted into the polysilicon rod. Okay, so just to keep these pictures in mind, okay. So actually in the nature we have this, but now we have to convert this into this, and then from this we have to make the ICs. Okay, this picture is very important. Now we just move on to how this quartzite will be converted into the polysilicon and what are the different steps that we need to follow at this point. Okay, so first of all, you see this. So basically what we have is we can see we have our starting material. See, I have already talked about that. We are actually using nowadays silicon. Okay, so silicon is the major semiconductor material that are used for fabrication of everything. Okay, and the other material which is also as your gallium arsenide. Fine, gallium arsenide is also used for making such some of the specific electronic devices. Okay, in some of the applications. So we do use the gallium arsenide. Fine, but in our syllabus we have to discuss about this. Okay, silicon. Okay, we have to discuss about the silicon processing, how we are getting the silicon. Okay, so whatever I have written over there, first of all we have to have a starting material. First of all, I have redrawn this picture. This picture is given in the SMZ book. Okay, you can look at the SMZ book. In that book you will find this particular picture, and I have redrawn it. Okay, so that picture was not very clear, so I have redrawn it just to make a good visibility. So first of all, what we need to have, we need to have a starting material. Okay, we need to have a starting material. And as I told you, when we are going for the silicon processing, the starting material will be our quartzite, whose chemical formula is SiO2. Okay, so we are having SiO2. Fine. Now, SiO2 is our basic material, okay, for the case of silicon. And for the case of gallium arsenide, we will be having our starting material as the gallium and the arsenide, okay. So we need to synthesize it, okay. We need to make a reaction between the gallium and arsenide, and then we have to get the gallium arsenide. But in the case of silicon, we have quartzite as a starting material, which will be SiO2. And from this starting material, we have to get the polycrystalline semiconductor. Okay, this is our step. Then from the polycrystal semiconductor, we have to get the single crystal, and then we have to go to the wafer. So now we can see from the starting material to polycrystalline semiconductor, we are having a several distillation and reduction process that we have to go through. So we have to go through this particular distillation and reduction process. And then from the polycrystalline semiconductor to single crystal, we have certain crystal growth techniques. Okay. So these growth techniques will be used actually for your silicon, as well as it is also used for the germanium. Okay. Czochralski techniques, and another technique is called as float zone technique. Okay. These are the two different techniques actually used for growth of single crystal of silicon. Okay, Czochralski method and the float zone technique. And similarly, Bridgman technique is actually used for growth of gallium arsenide. Okay, single crystal of gallium arsenide. Fine, so that you just remember for the sake of completeness. Fine. So we have to look at these process in detail. Okay, in your syllabus you will find Czochralski technique. So I will be discussing about the Czochralski technique in detail. Okay, and after making the single crystal, we have to develop the wafers. Okay, and these wafers, to develop these wafers, we have a different processes which is called as grinding, sewing, polishing. Okay, so these techniques I will be discussing one by one. Okay, so now we have to focus on first how this starting material is converted to the polycrystalline semiconductor, that we have to focus on. Okay, so now just see this. First of all, what we have is we are having silicon, which is available in the form of quartzite, and generally because it is available in the nature, it will be highly impure. So what we need to think of, it is highly impure material. Fine, it is highly impure. Then when it is highly impure, we have to purify it, and we have to get the silicon out of this SiO2. So what is the process that we have to focus on? We have to do the refining. Okay, we have to refine it. And all these processes are actually your chemical processes. Okay, we have to do some certain chemical reactions. And then we have to do this purification, right? So we have to do the refining process. And after the refining process of your SiO2, okay, you will be getting a 98% pure silicon. Okay, in the very first step, when we do the refining, After refining, we will be getting a 98% pure silicon, which is called as metallurgical grade silicon, which is MGS. Okay. So you will be finding a metallurgical grade silicon after the refining. And even after the refining, the dominant impurities that will be available will be your aluminum and iron. These are the dominant impurities that will be available. Fine. And after this, the MGS will be converted to electronic grade silicon, okay, which will be a highly pure polysilicon, okay, highly pure polysilicon, and this is called as the electronic grade silicon. So this MGS is actually not suitable for making any ICs. So for making the ICs, we need to further refine it. Okay, we have to eliminate the impurities. Okay, these impurities has to be eliminated, and then we have to get the highly pure polysilicon, which is called as electronic grade silicon. Okay, and then this electronic grade silicon will be used for, this EGS will be used for converting the polysilicon into single crystal silicon. Okay, so this is a polysilicon, so we have to convert this polysilicon into single silicon crystal. Okay, so that we have to look at one by one. Okay, so first we have to do for the refining, then we have to go for the distillation process. Okay. So what we are saying is, this corgite will be needed to convert into the MGS. We have to convert this corgite, which is SiO2. It should be converted into MGS, okay, which is your metallurgical grade silicon, which is 98% pure. And it is containing the dominant impurities as aluminum and iron. So first of all, what we have to do is, you can read this paragraph, what I have written over here. So first of all, I told you that it is a chemical process. Okay, we have to do a chemical processing. Okay, so basically what we do is we take the corgite, we have to means crush this into small pieces. Okay, and then what we have to do is, you see this, the refining process take place in furnace. Actually, we are taking an electric furnace over here. Okay, so we have to take an electric furnace, and in which a mixture of corgite and a carbon source. Okay, you just see this. We have to take a carbon source. Okay, and this carbon source usually coal or coke. Okay, so we have to take a carbon source, and it will be mixed with the corgite. Okay, and then it will be heated up to a temperature of 2000 degrees centigrade. Okay, we have to heat it up to 2000 degrees centigrade, and this will be done at the on an electric furnace, right? So that's why I have written over here that it is an electric power source used for heating. Okay, so because we are having an electric furnace, this complete reaction will take place on electric furnace. Okay, so what we are taking is, we are taking carbon source, any of the carbon source we need to take, and then we have to mix it with the SiO2. Fine. So now what we do is, actually what we do, first of all, we are taking a carbon source, and then we are taking the corgite, we are mixing them up. Okay, we need to mix them up. Fine, both will be mixed up, and then we have to submerge the electrodes. Okay, so the mixture of this is called as the charge. Okay, in terminology of with the VLSI fabrication, you will find that this terminology used as a charge. Okay, it is a charge. Okay, so what we do is, we are mixing it up, and then we are in this mixture we submerge an electrode, and then through that electrode we have to pass the current. So when we pass the current, okay, due to the arc, this mixture will get heated. Okay, so the arc heating will be used. Fine. So arc heating will be used, and because of the high temperature, there will be a reaction that will take place, and based on this particular chemical reaction, you will be getting a silicon that will be in the liquid form, and then this carbon monoxide gas will be released. Okay, then the carbon monoxide gas will be released, and then this silicon that we have got here, which is in the liquid form, when the temperature is very high, it is 98% pure. Okay, this is 98% pure, and this is called your MgS. Okay, this is called your MgS, metallurgical grade silicon. And this particular silicon is actually containing your impurities, which are your aluminium and iron. These are the two impurities that will be still present in this particular silicon. You already know that when we have a semiconductor material, if we add a certain impurities, fine, then its property, semiconducting property changes drastically. You know this fact. Okay, if we are adding any impurity, right? Because the dopants that we add, like N-type or P-type dopants, this is used for changing the property of the semiconductor. Okay, so its conductivity gets changes when we add the impurities, and that's why what we need is we need to further refine it. Okay, this particular silicon that we have got is not possessing a properties, or it is not suitable for making the ICs or any electronic devices or components. I have written one more equation. Okay, this equation I have taken from the JD Plummer's book. Okay, some other kind of equation you also will get. This equation I have taken from the SMZ. Okay, so either equation you can follow. Okay, so again you can take a silicon carbide. Okay, as a source of carbon. Okay, because we need to take a carbon source. Fine. So they had taken a carbon source, silicon carbide, and then it is mixing up with the SiO2, and again it will heat up the mixture, and then again they will get back the silicon again. And these are the byproducts that they are getting from the reaction. So either equation you can use for explaining how we are getting this MgS. Again, it will be the MgS, silicon in the solid form. So obviously, when the reaction took place, it will not directly converted into the solid, but it must be in the liquid form, and later on when the temperature is getting down, when it will cool down, it will be solidified, and we will be getting the solids. So I hope this must be clear how this conversion of the quartzite to MgS take place. Okay, so now what is the next step? Now we have converted the quartzite into MgS. Now our next step is to convert this MgS into PGS. Okay, so we have to convert this into this. Now it was in the liquid form at very high temperature, fine, very high temperature, and now it will be solidified and it will be converted into a solid silicon. Okay, which is your MgS. Now what we have to do is we have to convert this MgS into EGS. Okay, we have to convert the metallurgical grade silicon to electronic grade silicon. So I have written certain steps over here. You can read one by one. Okay, so what we have to do, because it is in the solid form. Okay, it is in the solid form, and it is containing certain impurities, and the dominant impurities are aluminum and irons. So what I have written is dominant impurities. It doesn't mean that the aluminum and iron is the only impurities. There will be certain other impurities also present in the MgS. Okay, but the dominants are the aluminum and the iron. Okay, so we have to remove these impurities, okay, from the MgS. So how it will be done? We have to convert this particular MgS, which is in the solid form. We have to grind, we have to do the grinding, and when after grinding we have to convert this into a fine powders. Okay, it will be converted into a fine powder, and then it will be reacting with a gaseous hydrochloric acid, HCl. Okay, so try to see this, what we are doing. We are converting this MgS, we are grinding it, we are converting them into a fine powder, and then it will be reacted with the gaseous HCl. Okay, in the presence of a catalyst at very high temperature. Okay, very elevated temperature, we have to do this reaction. So after having the reaction, okay, silicon which is in the solid form with impurities, when it is reacted with the HCl, there are lots of products that will be formed. Okay, so the first product that we are getting is, you can see it is sealant gas. Okay, SiH4, which is called as the sealant gas. Okay, we can have this another product which is called as chlorosilane. Okay, SiH3Cl, chlorosilane. Then we are having a dichlorosilane, SiH2Cl2. Okay, then we are getting a trichlorosilane, okay, which is called as SiHCl3, or we can get a silane tetrachloride, fine, which is SiCl4. So basically for converting the MgS to EGS, okay, we generally use trichlorosilane as the product. We generally use trichlorosilane. And the reason why we are using trichlorosilane is a liquid at room temperature. Okay, so trichlorosilane is a liquid at room temperature. So what we do is we have to form a trichlorosilane, and the reaction will be this. The chemical reaction is this. So what we have to do, we have to convert the MgS. Here we have written silicon solid. Okay, so this silicon is your MgS. Okay, metallurgical grade silicon, which is containing impurities, 98% pure. So this should be converted into a powder, and then this will be reacted with the hydrochloric acid. So after this reaction, we are going to get this product as silane gas, trichlorosilane gas, okay, SiHCl3. So when the temperature will go down, again it will be converted to a liquid, okay. So basically what is the point? The point is this trichlorosilane is liquid at room temperature, okay, it will be a liquid. So what is the advantage of having this liquid is we can go for the fractional distillation process. Okay. So what we need to do is we have to remove the impurities like aluminum and iron. So when we want to remove these impurities, then this can be done by fractional distillation. So in the fractional distillation, what we do, we need to boil this particular liquid. Okay, and we know that for all the different materials, the boiling point will be different. Okay, we know that it will vaporize at a different temperatures, and therefore what we can do is we can separate out the silicon from the impurities. Fine, because it is in the liquid form at the room temperature. If we boil it, okay, using the fractional distillation, then at different temperatures, different because boiling point of the different material will be different. So this way we can separate out the silicon from the impurities. Fine. So now when this particular process we are doing, okay, we are removing this particular impurities, fine, from the distillation process. Okay, so when we do the distillation process, okay, after doing the distillation process, okay, what we are going to get is we are going to get, this is the distillation process, okay, fractional distillation and the hydrogen reduction process. Okay, so distillation and the hydrogen reaction process will give you this. Okay, you can see. Fine. So after making a trichlorosilane, okay, we have the trichlorosilane over here, and then we have to do the reduction process. Okay, we have SiHCl3, which is your trichlorosilane gas, and then again we are having the H2 as a gas. Okay, so after doing this reduction process, okay, this reduction process will give you a silicon. Okay, the question comes like how it will be converted into a solid. Okay, so how it will be converted into a solid. So basically, if you see this complete reaction, okay, how we forming this trichlorosilane and how this trichlorosilane will be hydrogen reduced, okay, how this hydrogen reduction is processed. So this will be done at one of the chamber which is called as chemical vapor deposition chamber. Okay, so at present you have not studied about the CVD technique, chemical vapor deposition process. Okay, so you do not bother about it because this topic is there, Okay, and we will be discussing it in detail. Okay, so right now we just focus on what chemical reaction will take place and how this polysilicon will be deposited, or we will get the polysilicon out of MGS. Okay, that we have to look at. So basically this all reaction will take place in a chemical vapor deposition chamber. Okay, so it will be happen in the chemical vapor deposition process, means in the chamber, CVD chamber, in the CVD reactor. This reaction will take place, and then what we have to do is in the CVD process. Okay, in the CVD process, what we have to do is we have to place a very thin rod of polysilicon. Okay, because it will be heated, and the silicon will be also means this gas will be in the silane gas, means silane will be converted into the gas. So when it will be heated, okay, after heating this particular things, okay, what we need to do is we have to need to go for a nucleation process. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to place a polysilicon thin rod inside the chamber, and on that rod surface this silicon will start nucleating. Okay, it will start depositing on those particular surface. Okay, so initially it was in the vapor form, it is in the form of vaporized gaseous form. Okay, but what happens is because of the nucleation of the silicon on the surface of the polysilicon rod, a big rod, or you can say a rod of polysilicon you will get. Okay, of very high dimensions. Okay, so slowly what will happen is the nucleation on the surface of the polysilicon rod will take place, and this way we are going to deposit these silicon on the polysilicon rod. Okay, so you can understood this fact that we have to place a particular polysilicon rod within the chamber, and over that rod, okay, this polysilicon layer will be deposited. It's called as the nucleation of the silicon. So this will took place on the polysilicon rod. So this is what I have written. The nucleation of the silicon take place on the surface of the thin rod. Okay, thin silicon rod. It is again a polysilicon rod. Okay, and this reaction which is taking place in the chemical vapor deposition chamber, okay, CVD reactor, it will take lot of time. Okay, it is not like a matter of hours. It may take several days. Okay, it may take several days to deposit, uh, or the nucleation process will take time. Okay, and then we can get a picture something like this. Okay, I have shown you this picture. Okay, this type of picture. So this type of rod will be formed. Okay, after the nucleation we will be getting this type of rod, and this type of rod will be a polysilicon rod. Fine. So this way we will be getting our polysilicon rod. Okay, which is ultra pure. Okay, because we have already done the fractional distillation, and after fractional distillation the impurities will be taken out. Okay, and then again at the room temperature we will be getting back the silane gas, trichlorosilane gas, and then this will be hydrogen reduced with this chemical reaction. And then in within this CVD reactor we have to place one polysilicon rod, and then we have to go for the nucleation process. And the nucleation process will be means it will take place itself. Okay, it will be take place itself, because we have to maintain the environment such that this reaction will take place, and automatically this silicon will get deposited on the silicon rod. Fine, and this way we can get the polysilicon EGS. Fine. So it is electronic grade silicon, which is what we are saying that it is ultra pure. It is ultra pure electronic grade silicon. And now this polysilicon will be used as a raw material. Fine. This will be used as a raw material for converting this polysilicon into single silicon crystal. Fine, this should be converted into a single silicon crystal. Now, one thing that we have to think of is if we want to convert this polysilicon into a single silicon crystal, okay, single silicon crystal, okay, I told you there are two techniques. The polysilicon can be converted into single silicon crystal by having the two different techniques. Okay, you see this picture, I have told you this, by Zuckerelski technique, or we can follow the float zone method. Okay, so if we have to follow the float zone method, okay, then the rod itself can be used. Okay, polysilicon rod can directly be used. Okay, we don't do anything else. So we have to directly use the polysilicon rod in the case of float zone method. And if we are going for the Zuckerelski process, then we have to crush this rod into pieces, small pieces. Okay, so that's why I have shown this picture. Okay, either we can directly use the rod, okay, if it is a float zone method, or we can crush them into small pieces, okay, if we are following the Zuckerelski method. Fine. So I will be discussing the Zuckerelski method in detail. Fine. So don't bother about it. So what we are saying, we are now we have already got the polysilicon, and we are saying that this polysilicon EGS, which is ultra pure electronic grade silicon. Okay, it is ultra pure. So now we have to look at what we mean to say it is ultra pure. We have said that it was already 98% pure, and then the major dominant impurity was aluminum and iron. So that we have already separated out by following the fractional distillation process. So after doing the fractional distillation, we have removed those impurities, and then we have go for the nucleation process, and then we have got the polysilicon. Fine, then we are saying it is ultra pure. Okay, so now we have to thought about the what is ultra pure. Okay, so this purified polysilicon has one impurity atom part per billions. So please think of it. So one impurity atoms per billion atoms of your single your silicon crystal. Or on the other hand, you can look at this figure. Okay, on the order of 10 to the power 13 to 10 to the power 14 impurities per centimeter cube of your polysilicon. Okay, so if we take per centimeter cube of volume of our polysilicon, then we will be having this much of impurities present, 10 to the power 13 to 10 to the power 14 impurities per centimeter cube. Okay, so if we take the per centimeter cube volume of the polysilicon, so many impurities are present. If you see in the first when we see this number 10 to the power 13 and 10 to the power 14 per centimeter cube, you must be thinking that if so many impurities are present, then why we are saying it is ultra pure. Okay, so per centimeter cube, if so many impurities are present, but yet what we are saying, we just again read this line, what we are saying, this impurity, this many of impurities, what we are saying, this presents about an 8 order of magnitude improvement from the starting project. 8 order of improvement. It means that when we had the our quartzite, if we take the quartzite, it was containing around 10 to the power 22 impurities per centimeter cube of silicon. Okay, so when we take the quartzite 10 to the power 22, and it has now reduced to 10 to the power 14 per centimeter cube. So you can see how much reduction we have done. Okay, now we have to first of all, if we are writing this, okay, we should be able to understand how many silicon crystal will be there in per centimeter cube volume of the silicon. Okay, how many? So what I mean to say, what is the atomic density? Okay, what is the atomic density of silicon? Okay, so please go through and search it. Okay, I have already included this information. Okay, so you just see this particular information. The atomic density of silicon is around 4.995 into 10 to the power 22 atoms per centimeter cube. Fine. So many atoms we have, and that's why we are saying only one impurity atom we have for per billion of your silicon atoms. Okay, so within 1 centimeter cube of your volume of your silicon, you will have so many of atoms of your silicon, 10 to the power 22. Okay, and within this we will be getting these many of impurity atom. So if you calculate the percentage of the impurity atom as compared to your number of silicon atoms, you will find that it is 99.99% pure. And that's why we are saying that it is ultra pure silicon. Fine. So now we have to stop here. Okay, we'll stop here, and we will be continuing in the next lecture. Okay. So thank you all of you.